Our next guests are close friends and longtime collaborators who are pioneers in their respective fields of fashion and film. They're also the iconic subject and Academy Award-winning director of the new documentary Mark by Sofia, which opens select New York theaters on March 20th and nationwide on March 27th. Let's take a look.
I like your ladylike version, too.
There's a lot of ladylike stuff. Having dressed Winona for her trial, having dressed little Kim for her trial.
Everyone's-
You know, and then it's like, as soon as they need to put on this kind of image of propriety, the Winona ones are, of course, the classics. I think I'm going to always look at it as a costume because it just feels like it belongs to somebody who's got maturity that I don't, or
That's so
you know, that
true.
belongs to another time. Go to Mark.
Yeah.
He'll dress you for your trial.
Please welcome to the show Marc Jacobs and Sofia Coppola. Hello, you two. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's so surreal to be here.
It's wonderful to watch this film, and you sort of the framework of the film is Mark's 2024 show, getting ready for it, the prep for it. Why did you think that would be the jumping in point to spend time with Mark and let an audience get to know him?
Yeah, the Cutlers, the producers, asked me if I would do a documentary about Mark, and I said, no, I don't know how to do that. And he's my friend, and I would feel pressure to do a good job, but they said, he's about to start a collection. Do you want to film it? And I was like, oh, I don't want to miss that moment of seeing how he starts from nothing into a show and really get to watch the whole process. So my brother came with me, the camera, and we came to Mark's office. And of course, I've known Mark for years, so it was really fun to be with him, and he was open to it.
Were you? Did it take any convincing to make yourself the subject of a documentary?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't interested at all in doing a documentary, and I said, I'll do it if Sofia does it. I mean, that was the draw.
Too, like, by the beginning of a collection, you know, when you talk about, like, when you start at nothing, it's like any piece of writing or any piece of art. Like, there's literally nothing to it. Like, do you feel more vulnerable then, like, in that part of the creative process?
Do you?
Yeah, I think that's always scary, starting.
Yeah.
The blank
especially-
page.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, if
like-
someone was like, I want to do a documentary about you, we'd love to come when you have no ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, great idea. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love being in that room. I love just being in a fashion design, like the workspace and just like the swatches on the wall. And it's interesting how you're old, you know, there's a moment where you talk about how something that didn't work earlier, you know, you bring back into a collection, like that it finds its time back and it becomes relevant when it wasn't before. How often do you find you're pulling back into your own catalog of ideas?
I don't do it deliberately. Things just kind of come up, and like, you know, there was no plan like, let's put this away to be re-looked at in the future. It was just like things come up and they feel right in that moment, and you just kind of go for it. And sometimes we drop them again, but if we go for it and it works, it's
We
great.
pulled them out again.
Yeah.
Just sitting backstage, Mark was looking at my jacket, and he said, oh, it's from a few years ago. And he said, oh, I wouldn't have put the satin trim on now. Why?
That literally just happened.
And I was like, oh, I like the trim. I wouldn't have thought of it.
Like, Sophia's talking to me, and I'm literally like, what the hell were we thinking when we put that?
Well, one thing you can tell from the documentary is you're very hard on yourself.
Yes.
But I'm wondering, when you watch a documentary like this that shows the breadth of your work and how long you've been doing it, can you step back and say, I know I'm hard on myself, like in the individual moments, but this is all very nice. I did a very nice thing.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right.
I think there were so many really beautiful moments in that movie where we first met each other, and like it was really nice kind of seeing those things and seeing those moments. And I do find now I can honestly say, like, yeah, I'm proud of that. I'm glad I got to live that and be a part of that, you know.
It's interesting because you are friends, and I would imagine you know a lot of the answers that are important to ask for the purposes of us that don't know those answers. But were there things while you're making this film that you found out about Mark that you didn't know?
Yeah, not so many surprises, but there was like a notorious moment during the grunge collection where we heard Mark got fired because it was so scandalous, and he told me that actually wasn't true. It'd become a myth.
Yeah.
That was
a myth that I love. I mean,
Yeah.
I love being this rebel, heretic, punk rocker, you know. But the reality was a little bit different than
not as romantic.
not quite as dramatic as that.
They caught you stealing sugar from the break
That
room.
was it.
It was a way less.
It's like, give me the sugar.
What is your? I mean, imagine one of the things because again, this is your first documentary. Like, did you talk to other documentary filmmakers ahead of time? Because I imagine so much of it is making yourself invisible so that you can catch, especially when the creative processes are on film. It's not just people talking to camera and testimonials.
Yeah, I just tried to be as invisible. But I know the people at the studio, so they were welcoming to me, and it was sort of fun to get to be part of their team and follow them around. But yeah, I just tried to. Sometimes I would just go by myself in a little camera, so it wasn't like a big professional crew, and people.
You would
felt
hide in the
comfortable.
racks of clothes.
Yeah,
and just, like-
yeah.
No, it was either Sophia or Sophia and Roman. I mean,
Right.
that was the crew. you
Yeah,
know?
that helps.
So yeah.
Do you find were you aware that you would forget they were there? Like, would you just go about your process as you would otherwise?
Yeah, we were all just comfortable. I don't think we even had to try and like forget they were there because
Right.
it was just really so like casual and easy and yeah.
And I felt like Mark would get in the zone where he would zero in on like the difference between two shades of beige, and like he was in the zone. So it was fun to see that, and I think.
It is.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I do
you
that.
even say it's about it's very similar to being a film director. And when I've obviously never directed a film, but I've been on set when friends are directing films, and there is a similarity, like where you have to make what, to the untrained eye, look like very small choices. Do you feel like it is like making a film?
Yeah, I mean, I think that whole process, the creative process, from what I know, is like that idea of like telling a story, but then getting so into the details of that story. And I think that's part of the beauty of it, is to get to be a part of like every single decision and choice and sound.
Yeah.
All of it is like really cool.
Yeah, you don't strike me as a guy who like is going to leave early and be like, "You guys do the buttons."
No. Not the buttons. No, I need to be involved in the buttons.
Yeah. A lot of this takes place in the 90s. And it's so exciting. I moved here right after the 90s. But like New York in the 90s does seem like it was an exceptional time to be here. Is that your experience of it?
Yeah, it was so fun to revisit that time, and I'd forgotten about the X-Girls show, the show we worked on.
Outlaw show.
Yeah, we did on the street, and just to remember that time of being in New York, and we have music, Beastie Boys in that era, so it was fun.
Did you, looking back, what was the best thing about the 90s that people who live in New York now
No
are?
smartphones.
No smartphones.
Yeah, no phones,
No
no
social
pictures.
media.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just would run into people. There weren't as many plans because you weren't all connected.
Yeah, and haters would just come up to you and tell you how much they hated you.
Well, that's nice. They had to put a little effort in, you know?
They'd get up from their table, go across the restaurant and say, like, you know what I hate about you? I mean,
And that's a connection we've lost.
yeah, sad.
Sad. It is sad. I forgot about. I did not. Your X show, which I was less aware of then. I recently saw that on social media. When did you start making that?
I was helping Kim Gordon and Daisy they were doing X-Girl and asked me to help with the show. I don't know how I got involved, but it
Yeah.
was just fun. We did a fashion show on the street.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a fun time.
It's
to
a very
be
fun,
just
like
doing
guerrilla
things.
filmmaking, like
Yeah.
lo-fi time as well.
Yeah.
That's
we
when
were-
Chloe Sevigny started,
the
right?
model,
I know, and
yeah.
she was the model in our Sugarcane video.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it was just a group of people at that time
Yeah.
that were very.
And we were talking about how like music and photography and fashion were all intertwining. Maybe it always is, but it felt like a fun time.
It's
was fun
it
to
certainly
revisit.
looks like a fun time. Was it? I mean, again, what was your experience doing a documentary for the first time? Was there a part of it that was a great deal harder than the stuff you've worked on, what you've written?
Yeah, I mean, it was scary not having a script. It's like not having a map and trying to figure out where you're going. And I wanted to do a good job because it's my friend Mark, and I love his work, and I wanted to share that. But I just focused on trying to capture what it's like to be with him, and also show how his creative process, because I think it's really exciting to see how people make things and that we all go through the same moments of it's all a mess and is it ever going to come together?
Yeah, she had no map, and I had no map in what I was doing either, which I guess was the real similarity. Is we're like,
We were in it
we'll see where
together.
this takes us.
Well, especially, I mean, again, when they footage of your fashion shows, it's hard to imagine that because of the way there's such a clean vision.
Yeah.
I think it's actually helpful for creative people to see that like there's a great deal of doubt before that.
Yeah, a great deal.
And I always think for young people should be like nobody like sees this isn't the first thing they see.
Right.
This is like a whole process that gets to this.
Yeah.
You at a Met Ball once wore one of my favorite outfits of all time.
Yes.
Mark, here it is. This is
Simple lace dress.
a simple lace dress, and the
Brooks
reason
Brothers boxers.
the reason I bring it up is that I hosted the CFDA Awards that year, and I chose to also wear the outfit. And you were there that night, and I will say,
was.
I thought it was Anna Wintour's idea. She's like, you have to wear it, it'll be so funny. And I was like, oh my God, it will be so funny. And I put it on, and Sophia, I was like, this is the most comfortable I've been in my life.
Did you have Brooks Brothers boxers?
I had everything. Well, that was the thing. It's Anna
Amazing.
Wintour's idea. I'm not like, I have white boxers. She's like, not
No, it
those
has-
white boxers.
Oh my God, that's so
Yeah, I was
funny.
very convinced it was me up there. You know? It's like, how can that be? I'm sitting here and he's up there.
I will say the nicest thing about it is I had about like 2 months of it's the best shape I've been in my life. When I knew I was
Same.
when I was gonna wear this in a room full of fashion people, I was like carb free.
Same.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good to know. You don't come by it naturally either.
I remember my date for the Met that night when he picked me up at the house. He said, like, you're not wearing that, are you? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm wearing that. I was like, I've been in the gym for a year to wear this.
It's a wonderful film, and it's
Thank
just
you.
so lovely to have you both here. Thank you so much for making the time.
you.
You guys, that's Mark Jacobs, that's Sophia Coppola, Mark by Sophia will be in select theaters on March 20th and nationwide on March 27th. Stick around, be right back.